My name is Stephen Watmore. So let's talk about objects in the universe. We're going to start at the very beginning. So I'm going to get you let's call it Etch a Sketch. That's your drawing board. And we're going to fill that guy with just the fundamental building blocks of the universe. Fundamental, whatever that is. I'm going to call it energy. And your task is to create a universe. What do you do? Well, if all you have in front of you is the fundamental building blocks, you can't really do much. So you start building something else. So you take these fundamental building blocks, you start building up bigger objects. So if we take this fundamental building block and we pair it with this guy, right, they're spinning against each other and doing all sorts of interesting things, you get an atom, or a proton, or an electron, or even further down. And you start taking those building blocks and you build upon those. All of a sudden you get, so if you're an electron or proton, you get an atom. Cool. No, not very interesting, but cool. You know, bunch of universe filled with atoms. Awesome. So you start building up bigger and bigger objects. Start setting these objects free, so you can see how they interact and what happens. And I'm a computer guy, right? Design object-oriented application frameworks. And it's funny, when you start building these things, there's a fundamental, the framework, and the framework objects. The objects go into the framework itself. And then at some point in time, almost every time I've done this, the framework and the application infrastructure starts exhibiting behavior that you did not originally intend. And in a well-designed system, you have all these checks and balances, and the behavior is actually very good. The behavior is like, where did this behavior come from? But it's good behavior, right? So you're going to assume in your Etch a Sketch, all of a sudden, these things interacting, all of a sudden, you start seeing different things happen. It's like, I did not expect that. Different behavior, different things happening. They're interacting with one another, also you get this strange behavior you did not originally intend. You did not originally design. Sometimes, entropy is high, chaos is, very high, and everything degrades. Everything blows up and, degrades back down to the basic building blocks. Sometimes, you get that moment, it's like, wow, this is very cool. And you start using these guys to do other things. And again, over time, time is infinite. Over time, you get these interactions, and all these things start interacting with one another. You get this weird entropy moment, and it all degrades. And that happens in object-oriented design as well. So typically, what you do is there's so many different things that can occur in the universe, or maybe a really big application infrastructure. You start defining rules. Rules for things, rules for objects. You are an object, and this is how you behave. Here's your rules. Here's what information you need to execute that on. This is your state. You're a chair. You're a chair and currently sitting on the carpet. Right? And this is how a chair behaves. That type of thing. Right? But there are so many objects in the system, specifically, you don't remember this stuff. You start attaching this as attributes to the object itself. Saying, you're a hat, you do this. You're a chair, you do this, type of thing. And you don't purposely remember it, you ask it. Hey, chair, what do you do? He goes, I sit on the floor. What's your behavior? Well, I swivel. That type of thing. Now, that may be a strange concept to most. You can't ask a chair what it does. And this is where I get into the position where people go straight on the train to Looneyville. Because you can, surprisingly. And here's the reason why. If consciousness is defined as a symbiotic, well-structured piece of energy, at the highest or lowest level, whatever you want to call it, consciousness defines us, and consciousness defines God, then this object, which is comprised of energy at the lowest highest level, may exhibit some form of quote unquote consciousness, a very broad definition, or the behavior of that object is inferred from the energy it's comprised of. So if you can talk to your consciousness via ESP, or you can talk to God via ESP or some other form, and they're both comprised of energy, why can you not talk to a chair using ESP? And the reason why that would be good is because there's too many different objects in the system. Too many. You know, most people say that, God is specifically, or is everywhere all the time. Let's be frank. Everywhere all the time, depending on your definition, of course, whether God is energy or God is some form of consciousness based on energy, is, it just doesn't make sense. Right? So, if he's not, and he has a certain limitation with respect to where he can be, what he can do, how he governs the rules that define how the universe interacts with each other and all the objects therein, that I personally would define it such that, hey, guess what? You're a table, this is what you do. This is how you interact with everything around you. And those are, the rules of nature, or those are the basic foundational rules. So if you try and violate any of those, things happen, right? So that would infer, all sorts of interesting things like encapsulation, polymorphism, data hiding, basically attaching anthropomorphic attributes to an inanimate object. Now, if that is in fact true, would that not mean if you are able to communicate with a chair or an object in your system, you'll be able to go expose or iterate or iterate through the rules of our universe, the defined objects, either at highest or lowest level until you get the fundamental building blocks. Now, surprisingly, I have some examples of this. But, just think about it. So I'm not going to provide the examples yet, but think about it. Because it kind of does make sense. It's way the hell out there. Science fiction, Twilight Zone type of stuff. But hey, so far, nothing seems to be beyond incomprehension. Now, if you hold all this true, what would be one of the major problems with this? People messing with the fundamental rules, doing things they are not supposed to be doing things that are not supposed to be doing without full knowledge of what the implications or ramifications would be. Like messing with the fundamental building blocks, making them do things that they weren't expected to do, or have implications such as very large explosions. So what would you do about that? Well, myself, I'd obviously put in some sort of security framework. I would say, you are not allowed to do this. You cannot do this. If you try to do this, I will be notified. Or you could just let it be free. Say, hey, it is what it is. It's just energy. If they break one of these fundamental rules, they may no longer exist. Now, if you spend a lot of time building up this thing, building up your universe and your Etch-a-Sketch, I'm assuming you've kind of grown fond of some of these things. And you're going to put in those fundamental rules or securities so that they can't do this. But then again, there's so much. And there's areas where definitely, you can't control that. Now, as part of what I just said, though, you all notice, if you're paying attention, there's other facets of this system that would be of interest. So you have notifications, what happens when? What happens when? You have event dependencies, event dependency frameworks. When this happens, that type of thing. You have handlers. When I ask it to do this, guess what? It may have an impact to someone else. These are all basic object-oriented systems. Can they be applied to the universe? That's a really good question. Well, Mr. Computer, please record this. My name is Wadi. Can you hear me?
Please hit that subscribe button. I'd like to continue my research and hopefully YouTube can find as informative. My name is Wadi. I think you heard me.
Preceding audio and video cast is sole property of Stephen Watmore. It has been developed independent of any government, organization, business, or university learning institute. If you wish to use this information or discuss this information, please contact me, Stephen Watmore, via the comments of the YouTube playlist, and I'll be more than happy to discuss this with you. If you would like to make donations towards continued research in this area and other areas, please contact me via the comments list, and I'll be more than happy to accept them. My name is Wadi. Can you hear me?